Okay, what's up to everybody out there in YouTube? It's been a long time coming as far as this video. I should have been put out this video on the topic of acting black or white. That's what this video is going to be about. But I just, as far as being able to get access to a camera and everything wasn't that easy. I ain't had the money. I had a damn one of the phones with a camera on it, but I was having problems with that camera, and I ended up losing that damn phone and ended up having to buy a camera anyways. But anyways, I finally got one, and so I'm planning on putting out a bunch of videos within the next months, or whatever, controversial videos, stuff that's gonna get people talking and looking at stuff differently. Hopefully that's what my goal always is, to get people to look at stuff differently. But yeah, this particular video is about acting black or white, and the reason I decided to address this subject is because I saw so many videos on YouTube addressing it, and black people addressing it, white people, biracial people, which I found that real interesting to hear biracial people's view on acting black or white, and seeing how much they struggle with their identity and all of that. But I think some people made some good points on YouTube. But I don't think anybody went in depth really. But I plan on doing that on this video, breaking it down sociologically and historically. And I'm kind of talking fast because I don't want this video to be too long. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and break this down. This video will be like a summary of it, and then I plan on going into details on certain subjects dealing with this issue. Like subjects would include talking white or black. You know, is there such thing as listening to white or black music, and one other thing I might address in detail. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and get into this video. Okay, so the question is there such thing as acting black or white? First you have to rephrase this as something more specific. The question should be, is there a such thing as acting black American or white American? Okay. Question should be, is there such thing as acting black or white American? The reason you have to rephrase this as something more specific is because people's definitions of these terms, black and white, vary from country to country. So that's a real important thing to remember. Definitions vary from country to country. Okay, as far as I know, America is the only country with such an out-of-date definition of race, you know, such an out-of-date definition of black and white. You know, it's real basic and it's real convenient for whites to categorize us, not just nowadays, but especially way back when they was using it to discriminate against people. I mean, they still do, but the whole purpose of racial categories is for the dominant group, the majority, to use that to discriminate against people in certain ways and to categorize people, so it works out for them. And so it's not really based on what makes sense to me at all. But yeah, America's got a real fucked up definition. Ain't no need for me to sugarcoat it. It's fucked up, the definition of black or white in America. But it's open to interpretation because it's not a fact. When you go from country to country, it varies, the definition. So that's how you know it's not a fact. Okay, but again, you got to keep in mind that it varies from country to country, which is why you have to ask, is there such thing as acting black or white American? Okay. To answer this question, you have to ask yourself, are there differences between black Americans and white Americans? And the answer is yes. There are differences. Most of these differences, though, are very small and therefore not obvious, while others are very obvious. While pointing out differences, though, you have to acknowledge the fact as well that not all blacks are alike and not all whites are alike. This is because not all people, whether white or black, are in the same class economically. You know, your finances and your class, whether you're in the poor class, upper class, middle class, whatever, that affects the type of person that you are, because your circumstances vary based on the class that you're in, your income and everything. Okay, blacks, obviously poor blacks don't act just like middle class blacks. Poor whites don't act just like middle class whites, or middle class whites don't act just like upper class, and on and on and on. At the same time, there are some universal things amongst white Americans that unite them, and there are some universal things about blacks Americans that unite them as well, which is also due to circumstances. And mostly when I say circumstances that unite black people, I'm basically talking about history. And the same thing, the circumstances that unite unite whites, is also history. The circumstances, throughout history. Need to highlight that. It's important. Circumstances is the reason that whites, people within a race vary, and it's also what gives them an identity. Similar circumstances throughout history gives them a common identity, and different circumstances due to class gives them, some variation within their race. Okay. Also, you have to keep in mind, of course, that people within a race differ based on their regionality. And regionality, what I mean by that, that's just like say I'm from the South. I don't obviously act just like somebody from somewhere upstate, northeast region, or from the west, or wherever. The way I talk is different, certain things, the way I might view certain stuff might be different. It might be similar to certain people depending on my influences, and it's a lot of stuff that goes into that. But I would say that your regionality, where you're from, that's more influential to me. I think that plays a bigger part on how you act than your race. Like, I really believe that. Some people don't even think about that, but people always put race first. But I think where you're from, that make a bigger difference than whether the color of your skin and everything. It's not a whole lot more important, maybe. I don't know how much more influential where you're from is than your race. I should say your ethnicity, not your race. Let me quit saying that. Ethnicity. I don't know how much more your regionality is a factor in how you act than your ethnicity, but it is of great influence. Okay, again, but back to what I was saying, there are some differences between whites and blacks, obviously. To understand these differences, you have to break down each group's culture. While determining the differences between each group's culture, you have to keep some very important things in mind. First, white Americans' culture and black American culture have never ever been completely isolated from each other. We coexisted with each other since the beginning. We founded this country together, and we developed an American identity together. It didn't just come out of thin air. I would go as far as defining America or American as basically a fusion or a result of whites who colonized this country and the blacks that were enslaved. It's the results of those cultures coming together. The various whites that came from various countries and the black slaves who were enslaved to form the culture. And that's one way you could define America, I would say. So you gotta keep that in mind. Blacks and whites have never been isolated. Oh, and also you also have to keep in mind that I don't even know if I can fit this here. Definitions change over time. I don't even know if y'all can see that, but shit, that's an important point too. Definitions, I'm getting sloppy with this shit. Definitions change over time. I'm gonna get back to this whole subject about blacks and whites not being isolated and how we influence each other's culture, which makes it hard to define what's black and white. But I'm gonna elaborate on this a little bit. Definitions change over time, and mainly the main reason is because it's not a fact. people define stuff based on what's convenient for that time or based on their perceptions during that particular time. And of course, as people get more educated, they do away with the old way and they come up with something better. And definitions have improved to a certain degree. And at the same time, a lot of the definitions of black and white, they were intentionally defined a certain way so that blacks could view themselves as inferior. Whites wrote textbooks, blacks didn't write textbooks. It was just another way of stereotyping blacks and brainwashing them and literally making blacks perceive themselves a certain way, all for the sake of establishing dominance, perpetuating this mentality of I'm inferior, I'm superior and you inferior, but yeah, it changes over time. I've even read where whites, sociologists who write these books on defining race and all that, they were paid or told how to define what's black and white. So a lot of these real old ass books, you can't even go by a lot of what they said because it was the government made these people or told them they wanted stuff defined a certain way in order to influence people a certain way. And if a so-called expert tells you this is what black and white means, say in the 30s or the 40s or whenever, if they came out with a book that said this is written by an expert, so-called expert, you're gonna believe it. But you can't believe that shit. You gotta use your own common sense and you gotta educate yourself. By educating yourself, what you're literally doing is empowering yourself so you can come up with answers for yourself. But getting back to this, blacks and whites have never been isolated. I'm on my notes. Okay, we founded this country together, yada yada yada. Categorizing something as white or black or simply American is very hard to do. Also, you have to take into consideration the fact that what it means to be black or white in American changes over time. I already went over that. In other words, definitions change along with the time or the era. So why aren't they constant? It's because people define stuff based on what's convenient or acceptable. I already said that. With this in mind, you have to ask yourself, why do some things remain categorized as white or black while others are categorized as simply American? Okay, and this is real important. I need to erase all of this. Wait. This is very important. Shit. I dropped the fucking camera. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. I don't have a cameraman. I got this thing on.